Oh, I was looking for you, that's why I was looking. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I will give you 10 minutes to read, since you're just getting it. I know it's the first class, a lot of people don't like to be here long when it's the first class. So, start reading. You read that already? Okay. Oh, you need one? Why are you rubbing your forehead? What that means? You do? And he get one too? Your last. Really?
Yeah.
Well, everybody's finished, so introduce yourself.
Hi, Terrell Finley, Island Law, Intermediate Compliance. I'm here to learn, basically.
I know you are wondering why the book was so thin, right? Yes?
I think there was some addition.
Huh?
I think there was some addition, sorry.
Yes.
He said so, it was only 2 chapters and more to come.
Yeah, more to come. More to come. And now that I have a feel for the class, then I have a better understanding of where to focus. Okay? All right. So let's start. What's money laundering? Anybody?
Dirty money trying to get clean.
Money for assets.
Oh, me? I thought Miguel said he did that. Did Miguel do that?
No, ma'am. I missed it, if you did.
Thanks.
He didn't?
No.
He said he did. Okay, so I'm your lecturer just for the first 2 classes, and then I will get you at the end. The person is going to prepare your exam. For those who had me in intro last week, they have an idea of what the exams look like. What happened?
Nothing?
Yes. It won't be like the ones that you all did in intro before this class. So my name is Christine Archer, and I am a banker and attorney by profession. I've been in banking almost 40 years, and I've been doing compliance all my life. Forever. Uh-oh, what? What that mean?
You're a compliance lawyer? A lawyer. We took up compliance.
So that's what I do by profession. All right? So I heard some things with money laundering, moving dirty money here, there. What else? What is money laundering? You could say that in the intro class, but this is intermediate, so we take it a notch up. What exactly is money laundering? So you're thinking about a new unit. She works in the gaming industry. He works in the legal profession. What exactly is money laundering in terms of where you work?
People moving monies from place to place. Take it.
Yeah, but when you say trying to clean up, what does that mean? But you don't know it's dirty. This is the thing about, you're thinking of it as the person who has done something illegal. When you look at it from this perspective, you're sitting in a job where the funds are coming in. You must have a suspicion that it is. So when it comes, it doesn't have a name on it and say that it's dirty. So really, what is money laundering to you?
I guess people couriers moving monies from place to place to facilitate criminal act or terrorist act.
Much better. Much better. What's it to you?
I guess acquisition of wealth through illegal crime.
Okay,
Putting money
all
in
right.
the system and, claiming it to be from some sort of
Legitimate source.
legitimate
Exactly. What's money laundering to you?
Process of actually taking funds, proceeds obtained from illegitimate sources and converting it into an appearance of being legitimate money.
Right. So if I go to her and I ask you, why are you looking so shy? Okay. If I ask you what's money laundering in gaming, what is it? to learn, so just say it.
Basically, it's like, it's when assets from some criminal activities, and you kind of pass it through there to make it look like you want it, but it's actually dirty money.
Don't say that again.
It's criminal activities, assets from criminal activities.
So when people coming in every day and putting monies on their account, 500,000, 1,500,
And probably spinning a.
how do you know what's money laundering?
It depends. We have like, know your customer. So
Go ahead.
if they fill out the form and the form is saying that they're going to be spending this kind of money, then we see it as okay, that'll be good money because they said that that's what they would be doing.
You see a loophole there, right?
Yes.
Okay, tell her what the loophole is.
Because, take for example, persons can deposit money on their gaming thing, and then on the other hand, on the next island or whatever, it could be dirty money that they get from criminal activity here, and I'm in Exuma, and they deposit it, and I go and I withdraw it.
We have
to facilitate
we have a
Criminal
place where
yeah.
we monitor transactions. So you can't deposit money here in Nassau and you get it in Exuma. We see
So
all
that's
of that. We see all of that, and we have a
every
limit on how much you can put on and take off.
Okay, because take the example like in those islands where they don't have no banking, like example Long Island, you have
Long Island have banks.
Long Island don't have no banks in the
No,
north.
they don't.
They have banks like about
They have banks in the north for sure.
not Scotiabank, not Royal Bank.
When they close.
They close from that's right.
They close.
And so I'm not saying that they does this, but I'm just showing a loophole because persons there could be doing criminal activities.
We
Right,
monitor
you see what I'm
our
saying?
accounts.
But like no bank is down there, and persons has to drive like an hour to go to a bank, which you have persons who don't have transportation or whatever. So I'm just showing that's a little.
Well, we have very limited amount of web shops in Long Island.
They have a lot. They have
Yes.
a lot.
I just did a report last week. There's less than probably 5 web shops. in Long
No,
Island.
you heard the MD just came on last week.
I saw more.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's less than 5 operating.
No,
web
No.
I'm from there.
They have them in their homes.
No, they have them
Not in their homes.
in their homes.
In their homes we do it.
That's right. You heard the MD just.
But in the homes, you can make deposits and withdrawals. You can buy tickets.
Sweetie, they're doing all kind of things.
Because franchises only can sell tickets.
That's true, but we from Ireland. We work in the same department, compliance department. But on that same note, since regulations, I've only been there 9 months, right? But
That's a long
our
time.
department actually has a framework in place where we actually monitor. And that's it. I mean, because of the banks closing on the family ordinance, it is a big
Yeah.
issue, right? So there's a limit that you actually can withdraw from your account for proceeds being placed on the account for non-gaming.
Is it a date?
Daily, yes.
So I could pay
We want
500
that.
today, 5 tomorrow, dirty money, 5 the next day, and receive it? How do you monitor it? By a day?
I said with regards to the
Withdrawals.
withdrawals.
Okay, so but what I'm trying to say, can you deposit the $500 for me today and I draw that today, then tomorrow you deposit another 5 and I withdraw?
But
You
I
can
think
deposit
that's-
5 a day, and with that, if I notice that transaction in your account, that account will be closed.
Okay, yeah, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, she says asking.
Yeah, because then there's a limit, like
They are monitoring it.
like accounts, like accounts, like within within a typical amount, say there's a threshold, and if once you meet that threshold, your account is flagged and is actually monitored. So then it can't get to the point where it's locked or closed, and then we contact you and find out well.
Okay. What do you want to say? All right. So we all have an, you're quiet. What's money laundering to you?
Getting the monies firstly in the institution, thinking that, okay, you would have evade the watchful eye of whomever, and building on that deposit, continuously trying to keep it under the radar, but still yet you're doing, the proceeds that you are probably depositing is actually from criminal activities.
There's a document I want you to read. I didn't print it because it's big, but you can read it online. I want you to read the most recent CFATF evaluation.
Okay. FATF.
FATF. You'll find out what they are in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Evaluation on the Bahamas. I want you to read it. Yes, what you gonna say? What I wrote.
No, I'm saying, I think I came across it in
Yes.
Google?
In
You
this
Google that,
field,
you said?
just no, put in CFATF and put Bahamas, and you'll see the most recent report from the Bahamas.
Okay.
Now, my question to you is, the Bahamas, from a compliance perspective, is always high risk. Why is that? Why do we consider it a high risk jurisdiction?
Because of our location. I think a lot of things pass through our country, either going to, the US or,
Wherever, all over the world.
yes.
Anything else? Would you say because we are
No,
a tourist destination? Yes. What else?
Foreign investments.
You have a lot of foreign investments. Anything else?
They were, you know, because of the tax saver and trust.
As a tax saver, yes.
And of course, the Republicans
So-
wanted all them again.
When you read a lot of articles about the Bahamas, when you read this report, they're still saying that the Bahamas is deficient in terms of its AML framework. So if the country's framework has deficiencies, what do you think about the institution's framework, which is built upon the actual framework of the country?
And just lately, if you pick up the paper, just about every week you will see something and it's talking
Yeah,
about
they
this.
just take an
You know,
excerpt from that
yes.
same report. That's why I asked you to
Every-
read the report.
every week
So you have a
you can
better
s-
understanding
right.
of where the country sits.
Exactly.
And then you look, if you're already in compliance, you have to look to see whether the deficiencies that are on a national level relate to what happens in your organization.
Right,
You have to bring it down.
right.
So the first thing and next thing I'm gonna ask you is, what are the legislation that govern money laundering in the Bahamas?
That's what she was very off, right?
You don't really.
Yes, first one is the Proceeds of Crime Act. So when you did the intro, and those who didn't do intro, you must read it before you come back. That's the second assignment. You must read the Proceeds of Crime Act. I didn't say to memorize it, read it to become familiar. Everybody wants to be into compliance, but they don't understand that there are penalties when you don't do what you're supposed to do. And you can't do what you're supposed to do if you don't know what it is you're supposed to do. So you need to read it. What's the next piece of legislation? No, you're on the opposite side now. No, go on the next end. Yes, the Financial Transaction Reporting Act and Regulations. Remember again, you're not reading these to memorize. You're reading to get familiar. FTRA and R. FTRA, FTRR. Financial Transaction Reporting Act, Financial Transaction Reporting Regulations. What's the next one? Where all the people who said they did intro? No, not you, you didn't say it. These you had one over here, and one over here, and one over here. Let's go.
Still suffering from money.
No, we ain't on there yet. Domestic. Next one.
Central bank regulations. Well, in terms of banks, that's not the most.
Oh, that's the
Yeah, but hold on. So, what's in the central bank? I'm gonna write what you said. What does that mean?
Rules and laws that governs the commercial and private banks and other financial institutions.
Okay, so I asked you for what are the legislation that govern money laundering?
Okay.
So if I ask you, what are the legislation that govern money laundering in banking? Then you go here.
Okay.
The same way there is legislation that govern money laundering in gaming. But they're all based on the framework.
Okay. They're like a subset.
So, hold on, where's the number? You already gave me this. I
CT,
want the rest.
CT,
See what?
combating terrorism. I think it's called financing terrorism.
The terrorism, anti-terrorism act. Anything else? Any other legislation? You got to remember all of them. Let me go to the gaming people.
Gaming Act.
No, that's for gaming.
That's for gaming, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Let me put it up here. What? Right here. You're gonna lead to that very short, very soon. Now you see the difference? Each one of them have their own, but they're all based on this. Whatever's here comes from this. So if we go to banking, Banks and Trust Companies Regulation Act. They have their money laundering guidelines. Securities Commission. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I think they have their own rules for money laundering. The gaming, you have your gaming act. Is the regulations finished? Because they appear to always be in draft. They're still in draft, right? And you have your own AML guidelines.
Yes, ma'am.
But all of these are based on this. So, in intermediate, we start by stepping back. We know we have our domestic framework, and you know for your homework, you're going to read these, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, because you brought these up, that's why I put these on the board. So if you are in a particular field, in compliance or AML, then you must know the laws that govern what you do. But at the same time, you must know the overarching law. Because there are penalties here when you don't comply, and there are penalties here when you don't comply. There's an act missing from you. No. No. What's the central bank act? Why blank? What's the central bank act? What is it about?
It's a regulation of banks and
Hmm?
financial institutions.
It's a what?
The regulation of banks and financial
No,
institutions.
that's what this does. Banks and Trust Companies Regulation Act, that regulates banks and trusts and money service business and private trust companies and cooperatives. They all fall under there. You keep saying Central Bank Act. What is the Central Bank Act?
That governs all the banks.
No, they don't know. No. See, they're not another word. These are guidelines. I'll come back to that. What's the Central Bank Act?
An act that governs all the banks.
No. The act that governs all the banks and what they do is this. Banks and Trust Companies Regulation Act. But you keep saying the Central Bank Act. What's the Central Bank Act? What? What's that? By the central bank, by the governor and inspector. What's the Central Bank Act? You keep saying it. No, I did intro. Come on. No? You've been in banking long, so tell me. Okay, out the window. Okay. The Central Bank Act governs the actual economy. That's what it does. It has to do with the central bank in its role as being the bank of the country.
So if we have this act in place and all these
Which one?
regulation and legislation, how is it that they're still looking at us as being deficient? See,
We're gonna get to that. Write that question down. No, write it down. Because I'm gonna answer it for you.
okay,
You'll see when I answer it for you.
okay,
Okay? And when I answer it, then you say, yes, I see.
okay.
So write it down. So the Central Bank Act governs the central bank as being the bank of the country. That's the bank that deals with balancing our reserves. You know what the reserves are? You know what the reserves are? She said yes. Who's saying anything? What's the reserves? Tell them what the reserves are.
They bring in all the money, they're responsible for all of the currencies that govern the country. It's dispersed to all the different banks.
So, under the Central Bank Act, they're responsible for the money supply in the country. That's what they do. They're responsible for any gold that comes into this country. So the commercial banks and their deposit and their balance comes under the Central Bank Act. Because they have statutory reserve requirements, that comes under the Central Bank Act. But in terms of how a bank carries out its day-to-day functions, what it can and cannot do, falls under the Banks and Trust Companies Regulations Act. Different legislation. There's still an act missing from up there, on the left-hand side, under domestic framework. That's that. Those who in the role should know. Want me to give you a clue?
Yes.
You want a clue?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, so that's us there. Yes. Come on, 1 minute. It's not in there. So don't even turn the pages. It's not there. Where your book is? In your bag? What's missing?
I remember.
Everybody turning some page somewhere.
FIUA.
Yes. Yes. Take some turning pages.
You read this, let me turn the page when you over there.
Yes. And that's why I thought a light bulb would click. And it didn't click. You
remember that.
couldn't remember it?
I can remember that.
You remember what all the acronyms are for, right? You do? You know what they all mean, right? The acronyms. Okay. All right. So now we're comfortable. So we know we have a domestic framework, and we know we have a recent report that was done on the Bahamas. And what was the purpose of the report? Anybody knows? Was in the papers in the last 3 weeks,
I guess
every day, front page.
to determine if we were
Business section.
compliant,
Hmm?
to determine if we were compliant with the
With
regulations.
deficiencies that they would have found based on the last review.
And? You just said it.
To determine if we were compliant with the regulations.
With the international
Regulations.
requirements. Okay? So let's turn to our notes. All of this thing to do with money laundering stems from quite a few international organizations. For money laundering in the Bahamas, the main one is the FATF. That's the main one, FATF, Financial Action Task Force. And what it says is that in 2013, the FATF published guidance on conducting national risk assessments. So that's where they go from country to country, assessing whether or not the country themselves have met the requirements under the FATF recommendations. So, your next homework is to start to read the recommendations. So you have an understanding of where these things come from and why you are doing what you're doing. Make sure it's not too, so I'm not too sure. So you have homework number 3? Yes? You writing it down? Homework number 3? Let me put you up there.
No, the first one was read the most recent evaluation of the Bahamas by the
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Then also go over the Proceeds of Crime Act.
No, go over all.
Or
All. Not just one, all. That comes from the Compliance Commission. You should read it.
I printed it off, it's on my system.
And then the FIU has its own guidelines also, which is very good.
Who's that?
FIU, they have they have their own guidelines. Make sure they're not 2, because they feel like they're 2. Let me see your finger. Yes. And any more? There's 2? Yes. There's someone
The
else.
idea, when was the?
We can get
No, I.
evaluation.
It's
one for
No, no.
This is for us.
I just making sure. Anybody else have 2? Because I'm sure. Listen, I'm sure. Just double check, make sure you don't have 2. What's that? You got one.
Yeah, we.
And you get.
I give you one, ma'am.
You gave me one already? That may be more than one. May have more. Let's see. Yep. Let's make sure. So, you short on many? You didn't get one, right? You have one. So just 2. Because that's the last 2 percent. So you have 3 homework now. What are the 3? Make sure we're on the same page.
Read the CFAT evaluation. Read all the recommendations.
Read all the.
Read the FATF recommendation.
There you go. So, I just said to you that all of this that we do with regards to money laundering and the legislation that we have here, which is our legislative framework for money laundering, which the individual sectors have built their legislation on, comes from FATF. And what the FATF has done in the recommendation is they've highlighted some of the key risks and what is required to combat money laundering and terrorist financing in those recommendations. And so when the FATF or the CFATF comes to a country, they come to assess whether or not the legislation itself is in compliance with the law. But they also look at whether or not the law that was written is being adhered to by its constituents. It's two-pronged. One, that the laws are in compliance with the recommendation, and two, that the legislation that you have put in place domestically is being complied with by its constituents. And when you read the report, you will see that they found gaps between constituents and framework.
So how often do the FATF evaluate legislation? How often do they come in?
I think this is our fourth evaluation, and then it's like any other assessment. You have reports. You have to give reports of what you're doing, and then they come in and do another one.
So this FIU, this just came into effect?
Financial Intelligence Unit?
Yeah,
No,
no.
came in 2000.
Well, which one would just came into effect recently, most recently?
The legislation for money laundering?
Yeah, that was, the
No.
last one was the FIUA.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
All of it done in 2000.
okay. So before then, we didn't have it,
No. When we were blacklisted,
right?
we
Oh,
changed
so-
all the laws.
Right, okay. So this is why after that, we put in place that FIUA.
All of these came in after the blacklisting.
Really?
Yes.
So we was just vulnerable.
Yes. But remember now, this is not just the Bahamas, this was international.
Okay.
All these bodies in chapter 1 that I put in, the FATF, the IMF has been around for a very long time. The OECD, all of these you will see when you read your note, all of these took a stance for different reasons.
Okay.
So the FATF takes what we call a risk-based approach in looking at money laundering and terrorist financing. So when I say risk-based approach, what am I talking about? Yes, you know, because you're smiling. Yes, you did. When they say risk-based approach, what are they talking about?
The loopholes,
No, not exactly. Risk-based approach. Why you shake your head?
Everyone,
Yeah, let me hear. It come from, let it give me from you, then let me get it from gaming, and then I'll get it from over here. No, you have to apply it to what you do. You have the notes there, but you need to apply it to what you do. Otherwise, it's not gonna make sense to you.
okay.
So tell me, what do they mean by a risk-based approach? In your firm, do you take a risk-based approach?
Yeah.
And I'm just leaving that hanging in the middle without adding anything after it, to see if you understand. So what is it to you in what you do?
I mean, well, with most of them, we look at the frequency of transactions and how, and the nature of them, because they're all owned of one person, the transactions at the same time. And then we look at the regions, because like, I don't see all that stuff, I only see it from a small side, because I'm mostly in accounting. But,
So you see the monitoring
some of it-
side.
Right, so some of it that I see, I may ask a question, if it's, I see that it's something, money's coming from Saudi Arabia or somewhere, I'll ask them, I say, did y'all do this, did y'all do
Okay,
that?
so let me write these little things down as you talk. I can take this off?
Yeah.
Yep.
Continue.
So, in my view, I look basically at territories, and I looked at, some names may seem to sound odd to me, and I'll ask them if they did further due diligence on the names and their identities and whatnot. sometimes I get copies of the passports and all that other stuff, because like I said, I'm not so much on that side of the business at the beginning of it. But, if they're sending out money or paying out monies, I have to check the KYC, and that's when I see certain things, and I question it before we pay out the money, even though they had already accepted it. You know? But, I mean, everyone is assessed at a different level in terms of how you monitor them, really,
Okay,
based on like their transaction and I guess the territory and their origin.
all right. What you gonna tell me? Oh, she wanted to tell me something.
Question, is it to do when you say monitor, well, is it risk-based approach is the risk, high, medium, and low, how you categorize your,
Yes.
clients?
So explain.
I just remember that part. Low meaning, maybe a year review of your client, that they don't have much activity, transactions going on. Medium, yes, the KYC could be their transactions, their money transactions. Medium meaning, I don't remember what medium is. High meaning PEPs, their activity is.
Anything else?
For me, it's, you're looking at clients from the beginning for onboarding.
Yes.
The entire
Starts from the
framework.
beginning. The beginning. Notice both of them went to monitoring. The risk-based approach starts with the customer before you even onboard. Before they become a customer, you have to risk rate that customer. So say like how we started, when we began the whole course, as we were saying in terms of gaming. Someone, based on their profile and activity, only deposited $50. So your framework should say high, medium, low, or high and medium, however they're doing it. But what falls under those categories? What are the characteristics that make up high, medium, and low in terms of your customer? That's risk-based. So for gaming, for a customer to be low risk, what are the characteristics? Yes? Why you put your head down? There are two people in the back to back you up. Let's go. What's low?
It's more than two.
I do? Okay, keep talking then. What's low risk? What customer would be low risk?
Will low risk just be a customer that's just coming in to play numbers?
No,
Not that kind.
no.
Okay.
First thing when you hear risk-based, you're supposed to go to your company's policy. You must risk rate your customers. Because how you monitor depends, number one, which one they're in. Number two, the changes in their account. You're looking for two different things when you monitor. Okay, tell me.
Domestic player.
Okay, that's the first characteristic. What else would make them low?
Maybe
The
annual
expected
service worker.
No,
The
the expected
employment.
activity levels.
What you saying?
The amount of money that they.
Okay, the expected amount.
And the frequency.
Okay. I need some of the other ones. Two of these.
These?
This one. It was them all? Yeah.
What's this?
Okay.
I have.
All right, so domestic player, where they work, expected amount, and the frequency. Do you agree? Anything else?
If they're exempted, if they're an exempted institution or client. Right.
These two right here.
See, that's the thing, percent what I was telling you. Like,
Hmm?
in, I don't know about the other firms, but in our confirmed it, I don't see that.
Yes, but the whole point of me telling you is when the partner or whomever decides to take a client, you're not just taking the client for business.
No,
You're taking it on a risk rating because your monitoring is based on the risk rating.
but like I said, yes, we can write once they've taken the client on, but in that initial stage where they meet with that client.
So now you know.
I don't see that.
So now you
No, I don't
know.
see that, only the lawyer.
So now you know
Right.
that to monitor, you must have a listing of how the clients are risk rated, because that's important. And why that's important to you is, based upon how they're risk rated, then you go back to the risk rating framework for the organization. So if you see a customer's rated low, then you must know the characteristics for them being low. Because if this is a client that's only gonna be bringing in $50,000 a month or $50,000 a quarter, and that's within the parameters for low, then when you see they jump from 50 to 100, it's not just that they've gone outside the parameter, they've gone outside of everything else that goes with them. And it tells you what type of questions to ask. So he could have been employed, but then he probably changed his job. Or is it expected that based on his employment, the bonus that he's claiming he got is consistent with the job? So there's a lot of analysis that takes place. It's not just a thing that is meant from here to there, and they say A, and A go no. That's what money laundering is all about. You actually have to analyze the information. And this is critical for the Bahamas. Because that is what the CFATF is not seeing. They're not seeing people being prosecuted for money laundering.
Exactly.
But yet people are being charged for fraud, gun smuggling, human smuggling, any other kind of smuggling, but there's no prosecution. Prosecution cannot happen if you don't analyze the data.
So would it be in question if, let's say, someone brings their job letter that states how much their monthly income is, and let's say they get another job in a year and it's almost triple the amount that they were making when they first applied for the gaming or whatever in their contract? It's a way, you wouldn't question that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Yeah.
risk rate them.
Yeah, you'll have to
Even though
risk
they
rate
already
them
applied.
again. Yeah, you have to re-risk them. But in the back of your mind, you should be saying, was he unemployed at the beginning and just got something until he was able to get the right job? See, you have to question things.
Even
And-
when they bring the
Yes,
documents,
the people could create them too. And you could actually be calling the person who created the false letter. You see what I'm saying? So to you, it has to logically make sense. Because when you sit in the chair where you are responsible for filing, you're the person that's going to go to jail.
I see where,
Yes, you go to jail.
I see where the FATF
Mhm.
talks about, like you say, we implement the regulations and stuff,
Mhm,
right, to satisfy them. But also, what else are we doing? Like, they also talk about the people are not being trained,
Yes.
for example, in the police.
Yeah.
Or even the forefront where I am,
Yes.
persons are not
No, I don't know it.
being trained.
Yes.
So this is why they cannot see no cases coming.
And the training is, I always tell students, the purpose for coming to a class is not to come to one and skip the rest
Right.
and say, because you have the manual, I'll just go home and read it and take the exam. Then I get my certificate. Then you want to sit on the job. You haven't learned the skills to do it. When you come in a class, we share. As you can see, we have gaming, we have legal, we have customs, we have banking, we have all sectors. And by you being in here, you learn from each other. So if you went home, come to the first class, and then you go home for the next 10 weeks and sit the exam, to me, you haven't learned anything. Because when you sit in that desk and you tell someone, okay, I'm going to be a compliance analyst, which is the entry level, or I'm going to be a compliance officer and assist the MLRO, What analysis can you give? You can only guess. And you'll be guessing for a number of years. And that's why, to me, prosecution can't take place, because you don't have the depth of the knowledge to do it. To do this job, you have to be inquisitive. You have to be logical. You have to actually know what is happening in your environment, which means reading the newspaper. Separate gossip from facts. You don't have time for gossip. But you have to know what is happening, what is the trend, what is going on, so that when you see things, then you could say, this is not right. And this is not right because why? It's suspicious or it's unusual. And when you say something is suspicious or unusual, you have to go back to those legislation I had here. You go to your internal policies. But remember, everything comes from POCA, FTRA, FTRR, and FIU. Whether it's unusual or suspicious, to you raises, is there a crime? That's the thing. And you see when we do Unit 2, we talk about predicate crimes. Money laundering is based on predicate crimes. What is the crime underneath that facilitates this money laundering? That is where we need to get it. People are not looking at what is the crime underneath. It's unusual, it's suspicious, but what is the crime? That's key. So, you have 3 homeworks. Yeah, you have 3? No, you didn't miss one. You done them over and over again. So tell me, what's the role of the SATF? Because I know you read your notes while I had you waiting. You won't wait next week because you have chapter 2 already. Why? What's the SATF?
They monitor the.
That's the name. But what do they do? Go ahead. They do, yes, they do national risk assessment. What else they do?
Promote international regulations
They monitor them.
for national and international organizations combating crime.
Yes. What else they do? They write recommendations, yes. What else they do?
They also meet with these international
They keep your foot on fire.
organizations,
Make sure
bringing together legal, financial, and law enforcement.
What they do is, the recommendations themselves are updated, but what's more important to you in this area is that they actually bring out guidelines in certain areas where they see risk.
So how come they never bring it on to us for so long?
No, don't say that. They're
You
on the
said
website.
You said they just come into effect 2000. Some asking, or they were in place before 2000, these people, this FATF. Were they in place before that?
What your note says, when did they start?
1999.
99? Okay.
9/11.
Yes. The focus came in, how was this done? So those who don't know the story of 9/11, you need to find out. Because that is terrorism. One of the key things to do with money laundering and terrorist financing is the guideline I'm giving you. You have that one? You must know who owns the funds. You must know it.
Oh, good.
So there are guidelines out there on piracy, virtual currency, terrorism, and you use these to focus on how to detect these predicate crimes in your industry. I didn't give that one. I gave you that one. You didn't get this one. Anybody else needs transparency? Okay, so be good? Which one's you say? You should have two. I just gave out two more. Homework number 4.
No, I only have one.
Which one you have? I gave you 2. Which one you have? Which one? You have one? Homework number 4. What you missing? You have it. Yeah, you have it. Homework number 4. Yes? I don't want nobody looking up in my face and other lecturers like blank.
Okay.
Homework number 4.
Yeah.
Exam questions could come from anywhere.
Thanks.
Just making sure. Okay, so turn to page 6. FATF in the middle. FATF undertakes a range of tasks. 1, it identifies and analyzes money laundering, terrorist financing, and other threats to the integrity of the financial system. What?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I see where
Oh.
you are.
That is what they do. That's one of the main things they do. In the middle.
In the middle.
Right here.
This for me? Can I highlight these?
It's
This is
yours.
for me? Okay.
It develops and refines the international standards for combating money laundering and the financing of terrorism act. That is what the recommendations are all about. They refine these as they go. Because they're doing 2 things. 1, they've sent this out. Each country had to implement their own domestic laws, and at the same time, they actually visit to ensure that you're in compliance with it. When they come to check, they're able to see trends. And then they write reports, such as these. Everybody is trying to introduce Bitcoin. That is the talk of the day. Everybody wants to bring that to the Bahamas. They've already written a paper on that. What are the risks if you want to go into this market? So when you risk rate a client, you're not just risk rating them here. You also have to add to this what products and what services are going to be provided to this customer. That also increases the risk. All of that go together. This one here is a domestic player. But if we go to trade credit and you look at high risk and you look at what we call PEPs, you add to this also where the money is going. All of that determines the risk rating. That says it assesses and monitors its members through peer review. That's the mutual evaluation that we just had. The follow-up process to determine the degree of technical compliance, implementation, and effectiveness of systems for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. It identifies and engages with high-risk, non-cooperative jurisdictions, so which means that when they actually conduct a national assessment, if your framework is not up to par and the country has not made sufficient effort or they are pushing back, then you become a non-cooperative jurisdiction. Okay, so I can make It promotes full and effective implementation of the FATF recommendations by all countries through the global network of FATF-style regional bodies. So I know earlier you mentioned CFATF, the report that you're going to read. And the CFATF has what they call regional style bodies. And regional style body means that when you look at the whole world, what they have done is put one money laundering style body like the FATF for each region. So for the Caribbean, it's CFATF. There's one for Asia. There's one for North America. Everybody has their own. And their responsibility is to go in and do what the FATF would have done if it was here. So when you go to the CFATF website and you pull down the latest mutual evaluation, you will see that they themselves have written papers on trends that they see happening in the Caribbean. These are more international, but the CFATF has written their own. I should have bought one of them so I can put it on next time. I'll do that later. So it says it assists as necessary to significant new threats to the integrity of the financial system, consistent with the needs identified by international community. I notice I have here, stop at page 7. I have the UN, the G20, and the FATF itself. I will talk about the UN next class, but the United Nations is another body. That's in this fight against money laundering, but more in particular, terrorist financing. It assists jurisdiction in implementing financial provision of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on proliferation, assessing the degree of implementation and effectiveness of these measures in accordance with FATF mutual evaluations. You know what that means? I see you underline it. What it means? You know what that means? Tell me. Okay, I'm holding on. I'm holding on. So you see, this whole thing about money laundering involves a lot of international bodies. A lot. So it's not just the FATF / CFATF, the IMF, the OECD. You also have the UN, and there are even more. So the United Nations Security Council resolution, these are for the non-proliferation in terms of terrorist financing. And what they do is take Korea. All the talk is about Korea. So when the G10 countries get together and say that this country is not abiding by the rules for the whole globe, they will place a sanction on that country. So it depends on what they're doing. If you're in Iran or Iraq, and they think that to stop you doing what you're doing, we don't want no more money coming in your country, they'll put a sanction on that country.
So what about us?
There's no sanction on the Bahamas.
Okay, but if we don't
other countries have sanctions that were placed on them by the United Nations, and we have to abide by those.
So we'll only end up on a blacklist then?
Yeah, for now. But under the National Economic Auxiliary Act, you will see where the Bahamas will say, this UN sanction, all of the players must abide by it. It assists, it engages and consults with the private sector and civil society on matters relating to the overall work of the FATF. So the FATF itself goes out, and the same way all of these constituents in the financial arena goes out. That is why they have consultation periods. Whenever they draft the legislation, they draft the guideline, they're going to make changes, they will go out to the constituents to get the practical side, does it make sense, and bring it back. based upon what happens here, changes can be made to the actual framework itself, which is done at the AG's office. They don't know the loopholes. The loophole comes from the constituents. So the FATF recommendation, let's open it. What's the first recommendation? Make sure I didn't put it in the book. I put it here so you can read it. What's the first recommendation? What's the first one? So I put it in the book, you'll just read the headline, and then when I ask you in the question and exam, you give me the same one sentence. No, not happening. What's the first recommendation?
Identify the policy that
You join in there? Recommendation 1. That's the intro. So you just read it.
AML CFT policies and coordination, assessing risk and applying a risk-based approach.
That's right, that's the first one. So now you know you have to read them, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when you go, what's the second one?
National Cooperation and Coordination.
That one ain't too important now. Go to the next one. So this is what the CFATF is talking about, confiscation. You may say someone committed a crime, but why aren't we bringing more actions under the Proceeds of Crime Act and confiscating property under the act? Conquest, how many orders do we have under the Proceeds of Crime Act? Which are? You just finished your class. You just did it.
I
It
know,
was on the
it's
exam.
four, I know. Was the officer?
So they just spoke about this.
Production order,
Uh-huh.
confiscation order, I guess,
Confiscation order, yes.
and there's production.
Court order,
confiscation, court
what
order,
else?
And, what's the other one? The
C,
charging order.
Charging order, yes, the different orders. So, again, these are all under the Proceeds of Crime Act. If you feel diligent on Monday night, after you finish doing your homework assigned, you can go to the Central Bank AML guidelines and it gives you a synopsis of all these orders at the back. It actually explains to you what is unusual and what is suspicious.
So just last week, they spoke about the Confiscation Act, or what they're gonna bring
Order.
about,
Oh, that.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same
That's,
thing?
yeah, because again, that's a deficiency, like I was saying from the beginning of the
Right.
class.
So they're gonna implement.
You gotta reinforce it
Right.
so that you can bring about the action that we
So,
need.
so now they're gonna put in something to reinforce it.
What's the next recommendation?
Financing and proliferation.
So do you think the Bahamas can be used if actual financial systems be used for terrorist financing? Do you think we're vulnerable?
Yes,
How?
because like I said much earlier, we don't have enough training to identify persons that may
Okay.
be coming into the country to commit terrorist act.
Okay, so it's a deficiency in training. What else? No. You heard that?
What was she saying?
Say it again?
Terrorist financing isn't always done by illegal money.
No, it's not be done by legal money. There are some that deal with human smuggling and gun smuggling, but most of it is legal money.
They make it legal.
No,
so that
it is
you can-
legal money.
Okay.
This is someone who decides, I like your cause.
Okay.
So they're already rich. So they just call their firm and say, I want you to wire some money to so-and-so company. The company is also legitimate. Then that company wires it to another company, which is also legitimate. But along the way, as the money is dispersed, it's dispersed for a particular purpose. That's how terrorist financing works. You're not going through each stage of money laundering. This is legitimate money moving through, but it has an illegitimate purpose.
That's also like how if you go through, I think, U.S. Customs, like you will find some person not declaring, and then you'll also find some person declaring, and they still use that money.
So which act that falls under now? Besides, the underlying thing would be terrorism. But how have we improved our framework recently to address that? The same example you given,
I don't know what U.S.
Travel Currency Act.
But this is what we trying to,
Yes.
the Bahamian Customs. So
Well,
That wasn't me. No, you don't tell me that was not
it
me.
came from this corner, but it's
But it
off.
wasn't me.
I know it wasn't you.
yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
But that is why
So this
the
is why
Bahamas
it's
government and the
hard
U.S. government must work together.
And this is why it's hard to identify sometimes, because like you say, they use clean money.
Yes, it
illegal
is.
money.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So they will declare, you know,
But in
going
most
through
instances for
the
terrorist
threshold for
financing, they're not.
10,000.
It's not on the body. It moves electronically.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of money to blow up a building, and it takes more than one person. You need 1 to 2 persons for each skill set, each coming from
But
different
I
places.
guess they're the smart ones, but the other ones, they will use it body. They will
No,
have
you
it-
you die at the end,
Yeah.
because then you go to heaven. That's different. That's the religious aspect of it.
No, I'm talking about transferring the monies. You say they will move it electronically?
That ain't for terrorist financing.
No?
No,
That's
no.
for, like, from crimes and
That's
stuff
from
like-
actual crime. That's different. Terrorist financing is electronic.
Money, okay.
Now, when you sell some drugs on the side and then you get your share, it's in cash.
Right.
You can't put it in the bank. Why?
It's over the threshold.
It's over the threshold. You can't bring it in.
You get from.
And especially if it's not in your currency. How you gonna bring it?
But you could bring it in BNI.
See, then that's the reason why they now ask you if you.
You could bring it in that, they bring it in that way.
But still, how? Which bank you going to?
Well, what if you break it down and just keep it in that threshold?
And what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to bring it in.
But they do that.
You can do that. Watch this.
Ms.
Watch
Archer,
this.
you don't have to
But
bring
they
it in,
break it down
in raw
small
cash.
parts.
No, you don't.
You
But
can
then they-
use other ways.
Yes,
For example.
but that's what I'm saying now. This is why you are here with money laundering. It's not just cash.
Right.
You buy a car, you buy
Some
a
Rolex
house,
watch.
some Rolex watch, you change your clothes, you buy some stocks, you get 4 women, you spend it here, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house, buy a car, buy a car, buy a car, switch school from government school and send them to St. Andrews. All of these things, collectively, they come together. Something is not right. It's not an isolated one incident. It's all. And remember, when you decide to be courageous and you read this guideline from the central bank, you get it from their website, and you read the recommendation in here that deals with PAPs. Who are PAPs? And what that means?
Anybody can.
That's not any poison.
A prominent.
That's just one.
Prominent public
Could be a friend, family, siblings. When you read the FATF, they've gone all the way down to grandparents and all. Anybody that a politically exposed person can use to facilitate money laundering. So that even in terms of bribery and corruption, the money's not gonna, they're not gonna give, I'm not gonna give her a check and put it in her name. Exactly. But I could in turn say, guess what, I'm supposed to pay you 50 grand, I could pay that to you December. So I would draw it out in small amounts, put it together, bundle it, and then she say, give it to my cousin over here. And I said, now cuz, half for you, and you get the other half to sue down the road, my friend. Because she know I billing something down there. So she'll pay the workers for the next couple of months. That is how it happens.
So how you can prove that? What
It
way?
all comes from analysis.
that's
And
what
that
you
is
back
why
up,
when we
right?
say it's PEP, you have to know who's related to who. Not just by blood, but by association. And then you build a picture.
But that's hard, right?
No, this is small.
But we don't-
Now they do have software that you can actually pick this up. They have software, but it's expensive. And for a small organization, you won't invest that kind of money. So instead, they're depending on you with your brain to figure it out.
Because they spoke about that same thing too on Friday in the House Assembly, saying that if you pass the monies or the whatever you benefit on to your friend, family, whatever, they
Yes.
gotta confiscate it too.
And all will be prosecuted.
So even the Grammy, the uncle, the friend,
All. Because once you establish that there's a predicate crime, and based upon that crime, you now went into money laundering.
But suppose I don't have the knowledge of it that he gives me this as a
Really?
gift.
How is that possible?
Okay, he may just come over and say, Thompson, I want.
You benefit from it.
I will bless you for $5,000.
And how you blessing me? Have you been blessing me all along?
I mean, but I
You
mean,
see, you all too like
I
blessings.
don't have the knowledge. I'm trying to bless me.
You would have known, if that person was your right, you would have known that it's a certain lifestyle.
Yeah, but I know you're going to Grant Thompson, you just make big cash. You might bless me with one little $5.
All of a sudden,
I'm not
no.
Grant Thompson, but I'm not a lawyer, okay? Make too many
You'll end up in jail.
You don't do whatever and he buy you a house, so that means you got him locked up too, because you accepted the house.
Yeah, depends on where he got the money from.
Depends on where you got the money from.
Where you got the money from?
But I invited him to know.
Yeah,
But that's what I'm saying.
No. See, when you say you don't know,
Have the knowledge.
right?
But by the nature of his position.
But yeah,
But by the nature of his position.
but they don't make that kind of money.
No.
You can put.
If he was wealthy before he went in, and before he went in, he would every year or every 2 years give someone a house. It's a partner. But now he is an MP. He was broke before he get in. He don't make that much money. And now he's giving you a house. And the house fall under his portfolio.
Blessings.
You go into jail.
It just don't.
You see what I'm saying?
What he makes.
But we as a people have to now stop thinking of, like you say, blessings or free handout.
Yeah, we think.
Because of the international pressure, they're gonna have to prosecute. You can't just walk around here and take money,
Wow.
because the country will be in dire straits. We're just holding ourselves now on a shaky leg. If them legs go, you saw how the people were with the hurricane? That's how you all will be when you realize we're broke. Yeah, you have your salary coming in, but the country is broke. When the country is broke, you're in problems. The country can't go in the international market and borrow no money. So everything around you will deteriorate. Will deteriorate. And then you all will take the boat and go south, because you can't go north. So all of the predicate crime has to stop. And it stops with us. To me, that's why you're here today, to learn what is the problem and how can we stop it. So all of that free money, over.
All of the blessings.
All the blessings are over. Recently. But everybody likes blessings.
Good one.
I guess you gotta go back to playing numbers then to win like the 250.
But it's regulated.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you go away. When I went to Aruba once, In the hotel, it was a casino.
Yeah.
And my friend said she went down. She said, well, she always go. That was my first time. I said, I put my money in that. She called me 11 o'clock. She said, come on down, man. You have to just try it once. That's the first time I did it.
Can I bank that money? If I win that?
Yeah.
You get a casino receipt.
Get a receipt.
You get a receipt.
And so when I went in, and she said, okay, all right, okay.
That's
She
one way how
said,
they
just
get the
use
money.
$50 then since you're so scared. So she said, if you played for less, you really wasting your time. So I put the $50 in, and I won $700.
Wow.
Then you
And I
stop,
put that
right?
$700, and I went back up in my room, and I left her downstairs. And she lost everything she had. And then she came to borrow from me the next day. Not to play. She had no more money. She spent all of her travel incidental money down there trying to win. You're supposed to stop.
You're supposed to stop when you win that, because you got on.
But then see, that goes into the moral side now between
Or say, okay.
playing
$50,
fun
so that's
and getting addicted.
But that's them.
No, it's the mind. It's just like, no.
No, I mean,
If you like money,
stop.
if you like,
It is the money.
I actually went to the casino in Fort Lauderdale, know what it is, one of them Indian ones.
Okay.
Whatever, and one of them Indian ones. They just bring you drinks and walk around all day long. And my brother came in, he said, why are you just sitting here? I said, I'm not putting my money in these machines. I said, now you want to do it, you can do that. So he said, here, give each one of us $100. I put it in the machine, and when the machine said, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, I took it all out, went there, cashed it, and I sat down there until he was ready to leave. So it's a mind, it's a mental thing. It's just like if I came out now and I brought wine, right? I can take 2 sips for 3 hours. That glass will stay full. Someone else can sit there, just keep drinking. It's a mental thing. Either you can control yourself or you can't. It's as simple as that. Now if you choose on keep chasing, oh that wine tastes good, keep drinking more. Let's see if I get drunk. Same thing. You gamble. I win $20. Let me see if I win 40. Let's see if I win 60. Who would have been say, oh I win $5 million? Let me keep putting it. No, I'm not gonna do that. If I don't get that $5 million or that $100, ain't happening. Because in my mind, with that $100, I could buy me a blouse, maybe a pants, get my hair done. You see what I'm saying? But you have to learn, but again, it comes back to the same thing. You have to prioritize what's important to you. And again, with all of the money laundering that's going on, it comes back to the very beginning when you started. Were you raised with principles? Do you understand what it is to survive? Right from wrong. But we've been in society so long where everything is just free. Do what you want. Just keep going. Now we're at that point, we have to make the right decisions. And the right decisions start with you all. Because money laundering is just passing straight past your eyes and you just don't see it. It's happening. Because when you read the report, you can see what the people are saying. How, as busy as this place is, one of the biggest financial centers, and we've been in this business a long time. Nobody going to jail.
No one getting locked up.
Why is that? It's critical because it gives the world a perception that we're all corrupt. That all of us are guilty. So no one is going to point the finger to someone else because we're all guilty. And so we have to clean up our image, not just from a domestic level, but from an international level, that we are serious about money laundering. Am I getting it home? I hope so. All right. I hope so. Let's go to page 8. So I mentioned earlier that there are a lot of FATF style bodies. Remember when you see FATF is one. So Asia Pacific has one, like I told you. There's the Eurasian group, Eastern and South Africa. I think there is a guidance on piracy. There's the Intergovernmental Action Group, Middle East and North Africa, South Africa. Here, the book. Here, in the book. There are lots of different groups. Each one of these groups, when they go and conduct their mutual evaluation, they will look for trends and write are wise and you have clients that come from Africa, then you go to the FATS style body to see if they've written any guidance on what they see happening in their region. Because you're here in the Bahamas, this is 21/7. And you have customers coming from all over the world. So when this person comes, she says she's from Africa. She's Princess so-and-so. She's the daughter of so-and-so. Right? She's coming in, and she come to you all. She have all her character references. She has her financial statements. She can give you a look up on the internet. She's Princess so-and-so. She's fly to England. She does this. She dines with this. But you really don't know the nature of the activities that happen where she is coming from. I learned this week something, I knew it before, but I get to understand it even better, which is different from what we do. If you want a job, what do? You work the government, or you work in one of these industries, correct? You may work to some other little small firm that falls outside. But people in Europe don't really work like that. What they do is, they learn a little bit about everything. And then they go to the country that makes those things. And then they sell it to countries that need it.
Oh, wow.
That's why whenever you see a wealthy person, they either own a company that sells something, like say they own a car or hotel chain. But you always hear them say, and you hear it often too when you talk about Middle Africa and the Middle East, everybody's an import-export. And you wonder what that is. And that is what they do. So if I say I like cars, let me go and work with you for a while. And when I work with you, I notice, guess what? Out of all of these car repairs, these 4 things are critical to repairing cars. Next, I go to find out what type of cars people purchase a lot. Which ones break down? And then I say, those parts are made in China. I fly to China. Find out how much they cost to bring it in. And then I sell it. That's import-export. So when I present to him, I'm a multimillionaire. But his money is going to come from all different sources. Because when he finds out he can get those parts somewhere else cheaper, he's going to go and order some from there. And when he finds out there's another country that has the same type of cars, that use the same parts or variation of that part, he'll sell over there. So they're all over the world. And as we are a financial center, our clients are like that. Don't believe when you see Bahamians walking in with $250 and $1,000 to play, that all that money is here locally. A lot of Bahamians have business elsewhere.
And I saw that, I think, like last 2 weeks, with the Japanese car, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may be cheap coming in, like only paying $150 for it or $200, right?
They're down $50 now, that's
Right.
near the end of the year.
So I saw where
A car is $50.
the part is very, very expensive, right? And guess what? The only person that you can really go to and buy this van is the African, and it's very, very expensive.
And do you know why? Do you know why? You only can go to the Africans?
Because they realize that we need it.
In Africa, the majority of them are in that business. That is what they do. That's how they make money. When I leave the university, I do not go and get a job in a bank. I open a business. That's what they do. And that's what we're trying to encourage here, entrepreneurs. Go out there and make business for yourself. And hire people, rather than keep going under other people. Make your own living. That's the only way the country will survive. So they get all their degrees, but they go and they form a company. So when you go, everybody, you see how they have come here and they put all of those little car lots? That is what they do. They are not illiterate. They are educated. But that is their business. And you make that business your life. So when he has that business license, he'll bring in more than just cars. Cars is his main business. He could be selling furniture, he could be selling fridge, he could be selling clothes, anything. Because as they move, they network. And that is how they get rich. You sit here and you just consume. That's why they put VAT, consumption. You're not making any money. When you walk Bay Street, everybody sells the same thing. There's a whole world of they're selling all kinds of things, but it's the same thing. And you have to set yourself apart.
And I realized they work together, because if you go, I went to this African shop for mirror, it was $165. Then when I went to the next person, it was like $160. Then you went to the next place and it was like $158, like $2-3 difference. So you gotta get it from them. So you know what I mean? There's no way around it saying, okay, I can get it from AID, then get it for $50. You gotta go back to them.
And China has infiltrated their market.
Right.
So they know
They work
how
together.
to sell Chinese products. They know it.
Wow.
So instead of, it's just like when you go on a job and a foreigner comes, instead of you trying to say, let me work with this person, to take what they have with their brain and put it into mine, and you push back, then you can't grow. And then you complain 50 years later that they all still here. But you didn't bother to take what was in their head, so that when they say they want to stay, you can say you could go, because I know. That's another challenge that we have. Don't look so sad. When you leave here, you can be better. So, FATF mutual evaluations. Member countries have made commitment to the implementation of the 40+9 recommendations, which are monitored through a 2-tier approach. There's an annual self-assessment. So we would have done that, self-assess ourselves against the FATF recommendation. And then the on-site, which actually happened. So this happens not just in money laundering, in every aspect of a business. Wherever there is a risk, the organization must do a self-assessment. How do I see myself? And then someone else comes and say, okay, this is what you see, let's see what we see. So in order to do money laundering, if you had to self-assess your company and you did evaluation, you took everything good, and then the regulator comes in and took everything bad, you know what happens next, right? What happens next? Fired. So the mutual evaluation involves an in-depth assessment of a country's compliance with the 40 recommendations. Each assessment takes 1 year to complete. The team is made up of 4 to 6 experts and 2 members of the secretariat member. The draft report is prepared, and then prior to publication, they're discussed at the plenary meeting, which is normally done in Paris. And then the member countries report to the FATF 2 years after their evaluation, indicating their progress. And that's what we did over year, saying this is what we have done, this is what we have done. And then they come back and they find deficiencies. So what that means. But remember now, whenever you write anything, so say our legislation wrote in the 2000, this is 2017. Think about it. In 17 years, has the Bahamas changed? Definitely, it has changed a lot. It has changed a lot. Now, when you look at legislation, if you want to say, this is what's happening in my country, you must have had some court cases where we had to utilize that legislation to say it is strong. So we're not bringing any cases, and we're not prosecuting under those legislation. How do we know whether or not they're strong?
Do you think the reason for that is?
What?
Why we not prosecuting?
Tell her.
Lack of training. People can't identify money laundering
No, I mean, I
or
think
terrorists.
we identify it, but why are we not doing anything about it? Because we're seeing things that we know are not right.
We
Tell
see
her why.
it, but we can't identify
Tell her why
it.
we're not doing it.
But not the same.
Ah, there we say it louder. Too much buddy.
Body system.
Too much buddy. Everybody's family. Too familiar. When you see the thing is that if it's now, I see something and then I know she has to be prosecuted, she can pick up the phone and call him. Call that woman. Something wrong with her. You hear what she wants to say? No, that ain't happening. They may start it, then they disappear. Either the paper disappear, or the people disappear. Gone. That's the problem.
So we need to find a way to fix that too.
Yes, we find a way to fix
That needs
that.
to that needs
But
to be
again,
fixed.
like I say, everything is not just paper. It starts with you, the human. You have to be able to step out and put yourself out there. It comes down to integrity. Yeah. Nobody wants to go against the green, as they say. No one wants to be the one to say, it's her. She did it, I'm prosecuting.
Yeah, on that too, because they look at consequences on themselves.
Yes.
And that's
But I'm saying if you have integrity, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't.
If you lose your job because you did something right, trust me, someone will reward you for it.
See, the person in that case, persons feel like they're standing alone and there's no backing when they put it there. See?
If you
So
have
when
a
it
strong
goes there-
conviction that this person and the actions that they're doing is as a result of a predicate crime, then the only thing you have to worry about is whether or not they're going to be prosecuted for it. But if you know and you are convinced of what you see, that that is what it is, you will push for that. And remember, take away facts from gossip. So in order to have that conviction, you must know what's money laundering. And know where to go to read and find out. So you have support for what you're talking about. I see this pattern. I know what this is. This person is bringing things from this country. They have seen this trend happening. These numbers don't add up. How could this person be in all these different businesses in all these different countries? They're not leaving this country. They don't go anywhere. All these different things, you could add it up. And then you say, build a case. But it is happening. And you're just not picking it up. And remember, the criminals are always smarter than the people sitting in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do all day. And when people ask you questions about your system, it's in order to circumvent it. That's why every organization asks you to sign confidentiality. That don't mean you sit down around the dinner table and you discuss the company business. Because when I go down and I sit and I discuss it with her, then she goes to her friends and she said, no, it don't work like that. Eleanor said, work like this. And then that person go to another group over there, 6 people. Oh, no, don't work like that. It's work like this. One of them in there is a criminal. That's how they do it. Now, how I can work my way around that? And it goes just like that. And so when he meets his criminal buddy, he tells his criminal buddy, hey, let me tell you how this is working. We were so foolish. Before you know it, they all know. They're all doing it. But you're still sitting in your office, clueless. But you already leak it out. It's gone. And you just did it. And you're not supposed to. Yeah.
Asha,
Yes,
you
dear.
don't think, like with the individual sectors, right, they're looking, I guess, at the head and seeing that a lot of what's happening is being swept under the rug, so they may not take it as serious or see it as important to uphold their integrity because the head, the government, or whoever else.
But that's why it starts with us.
It does.
It
But
starts with us.
sadly, I think it's easier for them to just conform. Sadly.
No, we have to make a change. Because we're going down. You got to bring yourself back up. If we want to be seen as being, let me switch it around for you. How is banking changing? How is it changing?
Going online.
Getting more expensive.
They going online.
Besides that.
Electronic documents.
It's required to open the bank account.
What? The documents that require are all based on this.
And, yeah.
All is based on this. All is based from the requirements from the FATF. And all the other bodies depends on what they bring out. Every time if you do a transaction or your client does a transaction and compliance asks more questions, it's based on something coming from one of these. If you're in Iran or something's coming from Iraq and there's a ship and there's some $2 million coming through and they say they're doing a repair, the first thing you ask yourself, does this ship always dock here? Why is this ship out there getting service in this country rather than where it normally goes? Is there any embargo against that country? All those things you have to look at. Because as they say, money laundering, you have to read all day long. You have to know what's happening. That's just how it is.
Even digest money laundering.
Yeah, it's fun.
Because you know everything.
Yeah, but I mean, it's you. Once you love it, then you be eager to read. You must have an inquisitive mind. Now go back to your question. Did I answer it? I did, right? Okay. So there are some countries identified with deficiencies. In 2011, there were about 31, and that has actually gone down. I think the only ones that are a couple Eastern Russian countries. But most of the countries have tried to comply in order for cross-border transactions. Because if you're non-cooperative and you're non-compliant, then a country that is compliant is not going to do business with you. So you would see when Russia actually started to break apart, a lot of people would not do business with Russians. Why? Why wouldn't they do business with Russians? Because a lot of them were corrupt.
That explains why when you order certain things online, it says this does not ship to the Bahamas. And they won't let you proceed with it.
Fraud.
We find it. We're not compliant at all.
Yeah, because yesterday someone came to me and they said, I want to bring some cookies from one part of the world, but they don't want me to ship the cookies. So I was like, why? They say, they told us to go to customs to find out if customs would allow the cookies in the Bahamas. And I was like, wow. So maybe they be thinking
They're marijuana cookies.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
You see, just like that? But you have to know, they already legalized
why.
marijuana in certain countries,
I told them,
right?
I said, well, maybe
They're ready.
you need to
So
go
that's
to
what I'm saying, you have to be up on what's happening
Yeah.
around the world.
maybe
And Bahamians, like I just said, are finding different ways to make money. They're becoming entrepreneurial in spirit,
right.
but they're not opening businesses. They're doing it from home. They're opening a shop where they can employ people and rent, and so money can go around. They're finding different ways to do things that are illegal. Some actually go in the business of selling gold. And I've seen it. From home. Over the computer. And they're selling gold to Bahamian. Gold bars that don't exist. Yes.
Yeah.
You want to, yeah,
Yeah.
gold bars. So now that America has legalized marijuana, you can have marijuana in cookie and drink
Candy,
and
and
cereal,
stuff like that.
candy, whatever, anything you want in it,
And they have
you can get
found
it.
it like that in America.
Yeah. And so they're now trying to
I
find
thought
ways
about
to
that
bring it in.
question
Because if you
also.
grow the field, you know what can happen. So there's no Floyd with the field thing. Let's get it in a different way.
Marijuana and them cookies.
Yeah, the marijuana's in the cookies.
It's in
Medicinal.
the States right now. It's always on the news.
And
in the
Yeah,
States.
and you
but it's
know-
legal.
It's
There, and it's in whatever
After he
state
left
it's
me, he
in.
still wasn't satisfied. He said, I'll go to someone who's higher. I said, well, it's a
But
pleasure
you
to
see,
that.
you see
You
the
know what I mean?
thing,
And
right?
he was persistent to get an answer.
So you need
That's
so
the
but
plan.
so what you have to let him know is number one.
I don't know the person.
What's the laws of the Bahamas? Is marijuana legal or illegal? How many grams can you have?
And he was like, this is my first time doing.
Yeah, he wants to do business because it is a big business and people are becoming
And I was like,
billionaires by
wow.
selling these marijuana products. But they're for medicinal purposes. Not for you to sit on a corner and eat a box of marijuana cookies and get high. And then walk and be direct in traffic. It's not for that purpose.
So for
Even though it's legal,
It's control over there. No, but if they're bringing it in, it's not being controlled. You know that.
so Ms. Archer, so from my point
Oh,
of view,
hold on. She going in a different class now. She won't make it legal.
from my point of view, from my work point of view, right? So in order for us to identify these cookies, we have to identify the country that's selling them
You have, yes.
and the name
If
of
I'm
it.
bringing something from a particular country, your first question is this a product of that country? I just explained to you how things move.
Right.
I can move something from Afghanistan. I can take it through Turkey. I can bring it back up and take it through Spain. Then I can carry it back across and carry it through some part of Russia,
First you gotta
bring it
identify where it
across
come
the
from.
border. They could be bringing in opiates and you don't even know. Cookies made with opium. How you know?
So this is where the lack of training.
It's training and knowledge. You have to understand. Because knowledge is just out there now. You should know.
Yeah, it's accessible.
It's accessible. You just have to know fact from myth. And you need to know that by reading. Certain things we do here that are normal are abnormal to some people. Sometimes people come into the culture, they bring their culture with them. And some of the things that they do are abnormal to us, but they're normal where they come from. This is the way they do business. But we have to take a stance. This is the way you do business in this country, not in that country. Let's go. IMF. The IMF conducts financial sector assessments and provides technical assistance to financial sectors. So the IMF was here recently, page 9. What did they say to us? That's this one here, next international body. What did IMF
They
say
we
to
should
us?
increase VAT,
That's, no. They said income tax.
income tax, yeah.
Income tax. So they said you all are making a lot of money. You all have a financial sector. You all have a sector below that sector and one below that sector. Money is moving. Money is moving.
And we said no, right?
It's moving,
And the
but
government said no,
No,
right?
they didn't say no.
What they say?
We said not now. Because by the time you finish doing all of your investigations and all your ministries, then you'll have a better picture
Of what
of
type?
how
they-
far we are in the hole. What you saying now?
exactly.
Yeah, but I asked you what, but y'all didn't give me the answer. Why? I hear fees over there. What else you say? No, you say fees. That's a personal
So the
issue.
average person going home with
That's a
so the
personal
average
issue,
person going home
fees.
with $1.50.
Huh?
So the average person going home with $1.50. If they impose income tax, because
Yeah.
some salaries are so
Because if minimum wage is
drastically
Because
low.
you have to become entrepreneurs. You have to go there and make
Yeah,
money.
but until that person can do that,
Yeah, tax bill was certain.
they're in a hole. Until they can do that and have the ability to, they're in a hole.
Because your salary gotta be big for
Right.
you.
And if they're in a hole, I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter how much you make, it's what you really do with it, right? But then if your salary is
Okay,
really
so
that
let's
small, that is
let's
really,
take the flip coin of that, because someone said it earlier on this side. People are going home with $1.50 now before income tax. Why is that?
well,
It's consumption again.
yeah.
It's consumption again. This is what, October? Next week in November, if all of us walk downtown right now and look inside John Bull and the rest, go there in November, there's nothing there. No, they didn't buy everything. They buy them all. People walk there, buy 4 bags. Like, really? People do that. Someone told me, this gentleman walked in, he was wearing a uniform, and I saw him looking, and I said, I was in a particular store, and I said, this man cannot afford these things. And you know what the sales girl said to me? He will buy that before he pays any bill. I said, what do you mean? His mortgage, light, water, grocery, they come after he makes his purchase.
Wow.
That's not a joke. So yes, income tax will come, and you'll have to pay it.
And you will know
And that
when to
means
pay
people
it.
Because you have
seriously
to
got their money.
really, as a Bahamian people, you have to look at where we are now, and I guess you have to try to rediscipline yourself the way normal people live. All this highfalutin things you ought to be going on with and changing your language when you speak. All of that.
What you see with me is what you get. That's it.
It's the truth. I've same people.
You mean go from American to Bahamian?
Oh no, some Italian, some French, some are Canadian, some are British. They're meat solid with square shaped bread. Like what?
That's like, yeah, as if they have.
No, this is serious.
I just laugh at them. I just laugh at them.
Don't bubble.
You need to have a country to run.
The only thing is,
Them imposing income tax, why would there be anything that
I
be
don't have a
giving
problem
back
with
to us
that.
annually?
No,
It's
that's for the
gonna be
upkeep.
used for the meals.
That'd be in
Should
their
be.
license
Okay.
Don't
or
put
something
that
else
way in
where
the
they pay
trees.
you.
I always
I
did.
think
What?
it's going up on both sides, something has to go
What?
down
What you mean? What's
in
going on?
terms of things, the cost of things.
The cost. This is my personal view now. The cost of things is what I thought you all would have brought out when I spoke about banking. I know we like our salary scale, but look at it compared to other Caribbean countries. It is
Nothing.
It's way up there. Why gonna hire you for 60,000? And I could get 4 people over here.
So that's it.
You want 60,000 with your bachelor's degree or your associate degree and your 10 years. I could hire 4 of them over here for 20,000 with masters.
I'm ready to go.
That's the competition we face today. I told people when I was in law school, I said, you all sit here, you're dropping out and you're not studying. I said, but they have tellers in the Caribbean who are lawyers. Everybody has a degree. It's the same way when you go in other countries. Everybody has a master's degree. Don't mind them selling cars. They're all educated. We have to get back in the schools and get educated. You can't be demanding these high salaries. Keep demanding the high salary. Income tax will be higher. Why you need so much money? You only on 21/7.
Because the cost of living is high.
It will come down.
When?
Everything is based on supply and demand. If everybody wants to make $60,000 to $250,000, it's gonna go up.
But even if you look at the cost of electricity,
That's a different issue.
right?
That's different. That's different. Don't put that in that. I'm nothing to do with this. This is what you get paid based upon what you say you worth. But if I take her salary with her education and experience and I compare her to other people in the region, she's a joke. She's a joke. They can actually, if I wanted to open a company today, if I want to open a company today, here, and I say I want to hire 10 people, right? And I want them to be qualified. I gotta go through all kind of jiggle. This one ain't never been to school, this one work halfway, this one get this. You go in those countries, you may get 50 or 100 people, all a master's degree. All.
And I find that sometimes I train in them. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, a lot of them don't have the experience, but they have the degree.
Yeah, and I suck at them.
But I want you to notice, but I want you to notice, but I want you to notice, aren't all the jobs going there?
The people who have
The
the
jobs
degree?
are going there. The jobs are going there.
Yeah, I know
You say
that.
you're sick of people who have the degree?
No. What I'm
No.
saying is, she's saying
They don't have the
all
work
those-
experience,
they have
but
the
they
degree,
all
they
have
the experience.
Right.
So I'm
Yeah.
bombarded with their questions all day to try and help them do that.
But remember, we were saying long time we were talking about Caribbean integration and workflow. So now you don't want the movement of people. So they're taking the movement of the brain. Well, you sit here. You sit here, you demand your high salary, but just move the job over there.
And guess what?
And that's what they've done.
And then the high salary end up being redundant. Then you have no salary.
Exactly.
That's all.
So you go to have 0 salary.
So why we in the Bahamas who have a master's degree can't demand a high salary? And if you come from Africa, you could have managed and we pay you.
It's a business decision.
That's sad.
No.
Actually, I mean, time was that's
Yeah.
what I do.
Go to cheap amount. Yeah. That's what they look at. You, okay, I want to hire you.
Minimum, you know.
Yeah, but
Yeah, there's a minimum to them.
I'm saying persons in the Bahamas, if they have master's degree, right, and I apply for a job,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't pay me, but if someone else come with that master's degree from another
pay
country,
them the
they'll pay
salary
them.
amount then.
They
And housing,
don't. But
and
why
this,
you think
and
so?
that.
But that depends on the company. Some companies are not giving all those fringes
They'll
anymore.
have a Bahamian and they'll have like an American
Yeah.
or UK citizen or Canadian or whatever else.
To
You
be
want
paid in
100
them.
grand, you have the same
For 100
qualifications.
grand, you don't
But
give
they
it to
can
me.
hire this white Canadian and
Exactly.
pay them 100 grand.
And
But they don't want to pay you
sometimes they
100
don't
grand.
Exactly.
They
And that is so
don't-
sad. This
they
is
want
why, Ms. Archer,
experience.
I think persons in the Bahamas do not want to further their education because we see this all the time, you know? And this is why they, deter from going up to Mars
Okay,
or whatever.
I see two sides to this. I see two sides to this. One, I'm a Bahamian, so I want to be paid
I agree
100
with
grand,
that, because I have a
right?
master's and I get 0 for it.
She's a foreigner, and she wants to be paid 150, and you say you're gonna hire her, right? Now, I may even have more experience than her. But I'll tell you one thing I see off the top they have over us.
Right.
They can speak 5 to
Language?
more languages.
Okay, but suppose we could speak it too. I mean, just let's.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, but they have to pay, but guess what? They will have to pay, say a bank, they will have to pay even that.
They'll pay for those languages.
They will have to pay, I mean, for their work.
Because her languages will bring more.
That's what I'm going to tell you right now.
Well, I guess
They
that's the
are
only
so,
advantage
they
they
are
have.
so versatile. They are so versatile. This is what I'm saying. But Bahamians too, they're closed-minded. They are so versatile. If you decided you wanted that same job, let's say you're a foreigner Bahamian HR manager, you would stay in that HR position. This foreigner could work HR. You could take him 2 years, you could put him in operations, take him next 3 years and run IT. He will sit there and he will learn that, he will do it.
But like you say, I mean, go both ways because I saw this foreigner, she used to work in a bank doing marketing, right? And she didn't have no foreign language. I mean, she couldn't speak no other foreign language. She was from Trinidad. And, they had to pay her work permit and everything. And, after a while, I guess the bank probably catch themselves and they was like, no, we can't do this no longer. And she was just, and she used to tell me, she said, look, I just sit there and I don't really do nothing, But then she brags about that big salary she used to get.
But
plus the
remember
work
now,
permit. Not today.
but that's a
She
company
out of the
fault.
country,
Yeah, but I'm saying that's a company fault.
talk
When I
about
had, right. So she talk about business. So when I hire him, and he said he's coming in to be my marketing manager. So when I had my interview, he said, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, I could do that. So I hire him. He ain't doing nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, that's the difference. But that's an individual thing. Because I could have hired 2 foreigners. Both were interviewed well. This one said you're doing nothing. This one don't even have the experience. But went out there and made it happen. Gotta make it happen. Your mind can't be closed to sit in one job.
That's what I try.
You got to be versatile. You got to be able to say, guess what? I don't know that, but I could learn it.
But this is how could you do that though?
You said it earlier about going into the work environment and just learning from them instead of pulling back. Because I find out now that in the Bahamas we have a lot more boutique trust companies opening up, and the foreigners are there. So just like you said, I'm taking the opportunity to learn what I can learn from them because they're not going to be here long at all. No matter what we say about, oh, they can be here for months. No. Don't mind that. That's just a work permit. You could call and
they can be gone.
That's right.
So what you do is you just take the opportunity and learn.
And if they see that you're humble,
They work with you.
they will work with
They will
you.
work
You
with
can
you.
get anything from them.
Yeah, it is true.
The opportunities are there.
It is.
But a lot of us say, okay, oh, they brought this foreigner on top of me. But he don't have the experience. He never worked here before. What could he teach me? And they leave the person there. The person stay here 20, 50 years because everybody else around them never bothered to come to learn what they know. Now, you could be saying there, he doesn't know anything. I don't see him doing anything. Right? But if head office calls, he could go on the phone and you learn the language yet? You ain't learned the language yet.
This is why I
And
think
he could just be telling the people, move the paper from here and put it there. But you can't do it.
That's simple.
And this is why, Ms. Archer, I sat down and I decided to, after I did the first introduction that they introduced us to customs. And I said, you know what, not only to better myself, but to better the organization. Every day I see, you know, money laundering acts and stuff like that. And I want to know more and go into depth. You know what I mean? I said, even though they may not pay for it for me, but I'm going to go to the end, even, you know, starting January too. Because, like you say, you want to better yourself. And you know what I mean? You want to take steps. You don't want to just sit there and see it happening, and not because they're not going to pay for it for you, you know?
Yeah,
So-
you have to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
What you going to say?
On that point, to me, that's just a pet peeve for me. In that we're talking about foreigners, right? And them coming in and us, your position is that we should actually gravitate to them and actually garnish as much knowledge as we can from them, right? But it's in a part of the, like, it's a problem.
Go ahead.
With regards to the work permit, the stipulation states that they are supposed to have an understudy. But the government, previous government, they don't enforce that. And check
But I
up
blame
to
the
show.
organization and the people also, you know.
It has to come back to the government.
The government can't go and police all of these work permits.
That's right.
But they
When
issue.
you request that work permit,
It's the
it's up
companies.
to the company to stipulate certain things. These are the guidelines that you
Yeah,
must follow. by.
Right, and in their job description, it should be there.
That is.
Issues the work permit.
And you can report
I
them,
agree.
you can pick up the phone and call and they come and pick them up.
However,
and get rid
you
of
have
them.
to look at the company itself.
Yeah.
In other countries, yeah, it's a fall down. The government can't just do all of it.
Because you could come in here as a maid and later.
All the
on say,
ones that I have worked with in my almost 40 years of working in this industry, there is none I have not learned from. I've milked their brain dry.
Yeah, I know you have to take initiative.
Every foreigner. If I say they come to work early, I come to work early. My first interaction with a foreigner, I actually went to make their tea. Before the tea lady came.
They won't drink that.
Oh, I did that.
They won't drink that.
And that is the person who encouraged me to go to become a lawyer.
They won't drink
But I'm
that.
saying, what I'm telling you is this.
I'll come sit you.
No, but what I'm trying to tell you is
Nobody knows.
this. That, making that tea,
I didn't bust it.
No,
Listen.
listen.
Exactly.
Listen, I'm telling you, that making that tea opened the door for me to become an attorney. That person went and spoke and said, she'll make a good attorney. Pay for it.
Pay for
And
it.
they paid for it.
That's a trade-off.
I brought the tea, I brought the tea, and as I brought the tea, I said, what are you reading, sir? Oh, I got this from the Bahamas government. This is from the Prime Minister. I'm working on it. And that was it. Next day I go, so you're working on that again, sir? Yes, I am. Oh, let me ask you a question. And he'd ask a question, and from there, bill. The bill until in the mornings I came, he said, this came from the Prime Minister. Why don't you draft it? Then it moved from there by saying, you know what? You're so good at this, you don't need to work under nobody.
Yeah.
I can put you in charge, give you your own team. It worked whereby, one day they came to me and they say, there's a flight tomorrow. Go to, Argentina. Make this speech. You build that confidence.
So sometimes making tea
All I
is
did
good
was-
and bad. Joint customs, my boss tells me, say, can you make me a cup of
No,
tea?
he didn't ask me to make a cup of tea.
I say, you won't drink that.
No, you're going wrong. No, what I'm saying is that every morning someone came to make his tea. What I did was I came before that person.
And make the tea.
And I said, morning sir, you had your tea yet? No, I'll make it for you.
No.
I didn't say him asking me.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
That's different.
Well, if you know it is
You
drink
have to
coffee,
humble yourself.
so if I know you drink coffee, I just go and ask him.
That's where it starts, because, well, all the other employees would have already
You've been
been ticked
reported.
off for the fact that they hired this person, they had someone there who could have taken the job. And because that's all in them, they're not even interested in trying to say, make that connection.
Right.
But
You have to make that
you have to be able to
connection.
set that aside and try to work it, where in the long
In your
run,
advantage.
you benefit from it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't stay it with that organization, but you're gonna.
Right.
You take it with you.
Do it live. My mother always say that.
What's that?
Catch more bees with honey than you do with lime.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about how you approach
It's how you approach it. And so yes, everybody around me was jealous, but I had worked